Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to The Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Scott Dawson, President of Core Business Solutions. Glad you could join us, Scott.
It's my privilege, X. Thank you.
Absolutely. So today's podcast is actually going to be a little different. This is going to be an introduction to a new series here on the Quality Hub called Survive and Thrive. Now, this series is dedicated to delivering practical strategies for small businesses. Our mission is to help you navigate these unprecedented times of change and uncertainty. Each episode is packed with real-world advice from trusted industry experts, tailored specifically for small business leaders like you. Join us as we explore insights that can empower you and your business to not only survive, but truly thrive. And in this first episode, we're kicking things off with the person behind the series concept, Scott Dawson. Scott, again, great to have you here. I know you're excited to get this started. Let's just kick off with what inspired you to start this Survive and Thrive podcast series?
Well, I think if we're all watching the news in the evening, there's a lot of change, uncertainty affecting, I guess we'll say, on the macroeconomic scale of things. So the whole U.S. economy is being impacted by various changes that are being announced and implemented, and I'll say started and stopped.
Yes.
And as we've talked to clients, talked to small businesses, they're very unsettled right now.
Yeah.
Do I move forward? Do I step back? Very difficult to know what to do when federal policy and tariffs and funding and supply chains are all being impacted. So, we really want to help companies to think through, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. And this series is really about creating a space to address those questions, offer some encouragement and perspective. I don't know if we'll have any firm answers, because I don't know if there are firm answers.
I don't know if there are either.
But we're all going through it together, and I just felt like it was important to be talking about it with small businesses who are on the edge of their seat to find out how this is all going to turn out over the next several months and years.
Yeah. As you've described this, it reminds me of similar to the early days of like COVID, not from the health perspective, but just that sense of disruption and what's happening, what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Thank God there's not the health crisis, you know, for sure. But boy, that we were suddenly in a different world. And this year we're suddenly economically in a different world. Mm-hmm. But a lot of companies learned to pivot quickly with COVID. There were businesses being shut down. There were industries that were being put on pause. There were other industries that opened immediately. Mm-hmm. There was concern about employees. There were businesses that had to lay employees off. And there were just a lot of things that all happened all at once. But some businesses thrived through that period of time because they pivoted, they adjusted, they were flexible, or I'll say it, X, downright lucky.
Yeah.
To be in the right industry at the right time. Or it's because they really invested in improvement. And we see that because as we work with clients who are working on compliance on standards like ISO, and CMMC, things like that, there's always a question, do I move forward? Do I not move forward? Do I invest in my business now, or do I not invest in my business now? And we found a lot of people stepping forward and saying, now's a great time to invest because we don't know what the future holds and we need to be prepared.
100%. It makes a lot of business sense what you're saying. And again, it is very familiar in some respects.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of business podcasts out there. Let's be honest. What makes this Survive and Thrive podcast series different?
Well, for one, you don't need an hour or 2 hours to listen to it. So
that's a good point.
This is going to be bite-sized episodes, 15 minutes or so. If we can keep it to that, we're going to try to. We have some tremendous experts on the list of guests. We are not promoting our services. We're not promoting Core Business Solutions. That's not a commercial for our company. We just felt like we needed to share this experience with our clients and bring together experts in different aspects of these changes. So we've got leaders in Apex Accelerators and MEPs, and I think we're going to get someone from the Small Business Development Center and SBDC.
Oh, that's great.
All geared around small businesses and what it takes to be successful. We've got business owners, we've got venture capitalists, we've got attorneys. Everybody's seeing this a little bit different way. And I think the variety is going to be interesting to people. And I think one episode doesn't really strike a chord. I'll bet the next one does. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to be practical. We're trying to be timely. That's another key X, is that by the time we get this information out, we don't want it to be obsolete because things are changing.
Right.
So we're doing a quick turn.
Yeah.
Here we're recording episode 1, and we're probably going to have it on air here in a couple of weeks, as quick as we can get it out.
Right.
But we're not going to talk about theory. We're not going to talk about things that aren't pertinent to today. We're going to talk about what people might need to think about, what perspective they may need to take, or what decisions they might want to make right now in these uncertain times.
Sounds great. We talked about it a little bit, I think, or alluded to, but who's the series really for?
Yeah, I would say leaders in small business, whether you're an owner or a manager, maybe you're in sales, maybe you're in marketing, mm-hmm. Small manufacturers, certainly, government contractors, boy, they're feeling the pinch.
Yeah.
With all the changes and downsizing and realignment that they're going through. So government contractors certainly are welcome. And service firms who may feel like the rules of the game are just changing. Mm-hmm. The ground is shifting underneath your feet, as they say, and trying to figure out what to do next. And I think this podcast is going to be for you if you want to kind of proceed smartly, as they say.
100%. So we talked about it during the intro, and we say that we're going to have practical strategies. Why is that so important for small businesses to have practical strategies for resilience today, and really now more than ever?
Well, I think the decision making is much more rapid right now in the mm-hmm. sense that it's hard to think 3 to 5 years down the road. We're thinking 3 to 5 months down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have time to think about long-term, big strategic questions right now. We need to think more tactical. Mm-hmm. What can we do in the short term? Say with the remainder of 2025, let's just put it in this context here.
Okay.
What can we do with the remainder of our year to make sure we survive and thrive coming out of the year? So focusing on real practical steps people can take, giving options. And if you have options, it means you can adjust. And if you can adjust, it means you don't have to panic. Right?
Yeah, which is probably what everybody's first initial thought is. Panic.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, it feels like COVID. I mean, just immediate fear starts to come into your heart and mind. And you look at, what's happening with your backlog. You look at what's happening with your contracts and your marketing and sales, and just looking at things you've built being on shaky ground.
Yeah.
Now we got to think through step by step. What should we be doing now to be in the best case that we can be in as we go through these difficult times? Because I think everybody's business is being disrupted in one way or another.
Yeah. And I like the term disrupted. That's what it is. It's a disruption. You're like, it's a change. It's sort of like when you have a death in the family, or, something sudden that, who said life's what happens when you're busy making other plans?
Yeah,
that was Lennon, right. Wasn't it? It's
that's
almost
right.
That type of thing.
Yeah, but fortunately, many businesses did pull through the COVID year and subsequently better off than they were going in.
Yeah.
We've all learned how to do some new things, not the least of which is video conferencing. We've all gotten, hey, you're on mute. Or why is my camera not working? Or
exactly.
Whatever it is. Where's that button to share? Mm-hmm. All that stuff. We've learned how to communicate in new ways. We've learned how to deal with different kinds of, other partners, other suppliers, other customers. So I think we've all flexed our flexible muscles. Mm-hmm. And it's time to get them back out and do it again, because we're in a time where flexibility is going to be important.
100%. So you mentioned that we have some MEP and Apex people. Could you give us some quick preview of who we might be hearing from?
Yeah, we got folks from all over the country. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. We have a national customer base. We have a national partner network. So we reached out to our partners. So we've got Dennis Gilbert from Pennsylvania, MEP. Mm-hmm. That's the local manufacturing extension partnership to Core Business Solutions. Dennis is just down the street. It's how we got connected with MEPs. And Dennis is the director at IMC, and excited to talk to Dennis about change and risk-based thinking. Gene Perrin from Chicago area at IMEC, going to talk about cost structures and supply chains and how to think about, is now a time to be renegotiating deals with your suppliers?
That's a really good point.
Probably is, with all the tariffs floating around. Stacy Miller from West Virginia, MEP, she's going to talk about something really close to home to everybody, which is how to lead your team through uncertainty, where, you know, you've got people that you deal with every day and everybody's nervous.
Yeah.
So as a leader, what's your role and how do you proceed? And then John Maddox of Schoonover and Moriarty Law, I think it is.
I believe that's it. Yep.
And John is an attorney, deals a lot with government contracting. And we're going to talk about what happens if your contract with the government gets canceled.
One of the worst things that could happen right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So is he sort of like the Sherlock Holmes of attorneys with business attorneys?
He might be. He might be.
Okay.
He's pretty cagey,
Okay.
I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm impressed with John. By the way, he's from Kansas City. And X, I know you're a big Eagles fan.
Oh, yeah, one could say that.
So when we met with John, there was a little back and forth.
Yep. Yeah.
There was a little back
But
and
he was
forth.
a nice guy. It was a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
That's just a few of them. I mean, we've got, I don't know, at this point, 10 to 12 episodes planned. And stay tuned, because we'll be putting out other names and other topics as we go. But hang with us next week when the next episode comes out and kind of get a taste for where we're going with this. I think Dennis will be the first one that we talk about, which is a great way to start this, talking about risk-based thinking and change, that kind of thing.
Yep. Now, these aren't just random topics we're listening to, or that we're talking about?
No. We talked, as we talked to our partners, we asked each of them, what are you hearing from your clients? What questions are you answering, or being asked at least? And we looked for a point of view that each guest is very passionate about. You know, they feel strongly that this is an area that companies might want to focus on, but it's a variety. You know, we thought maybe there'd be a party line. You know, everybody thought the same things need to be addressed, but it isn't really that case. I think there's a lot of questions swirling around in people's minds. So we're going to deal with a lot of questions, I guess is the way to say it.
Awesome. Now, you said that, again, we're partnering with some MEPs and Apex Accelerators and others for the series. Why was that specifically important?
Well, these are publicly funded economic development resources around the country. And by the way, they're federally funded, and there's question marks floating around their funding. So they're feeling it too. Okay, I guess that's a way to say it.
Yeah, in the same boat as some of our customers.
In the same boat. And they are located in every state in the nation, Puerto Rico, maybe Virgin Islands. I've forgotten now what territories they're in as well. But they work with small businesses locally to help them succeed, help them improve. MEPs work a lot on improvement, continual improvement, and compliance and things like that. Apex Accelerators help small businesses with government contracts. How do you find them? How do you land them? That kind of thing. SBDCs are more, I think of them more as startup kind of phase of a small business. I'm not sure that's always true, but all three of these organizations, their clients are small businesses in every conceivable industry sector, I guess we should say. So they have just a ton of practical experience, and everyone that's going to be on our session has worked in a small business. They understand how they operate, and they've seen a lot of things, learned a lot of things. They're just, to me, hidden jewels in our nation that if you don't know about MEPs, Apex Accelerators, and the SBDCs that are part of the SBA, you should hunt those folks down, make contact, and see how they can help. And we're going to let you meet some of them.
Yeah, they're really in it for helping small business.
For sure.
Let's zoom out a minute. What does it really mean to thrive today and not just survive? Can you define that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think, to me, thriving means we have a bright future, and we've started down a path that looks to be very promising. I mean, survive, you could look at it and say, gee, are we going to have our doors open in a few weeks or in a few months?
Yeah.
And looking past that and say, we can't just think about survival. We've got to think about how do we get back on a successful path. And so it could be stabilizing your cost base or restructuring your cost base. Mm-hmm. It could be rebuilding your team trust, because a lot of people are shaken right now.
Yeah.
Could be finding a new supplier closer to home if the tariffs become prohibitive to source something overseas. But all of these things together, putting your company on a good path to really be a winner in this time of change.
Yeah.
Rather than the alternative. There are going to be winners, there are going to be losers, and every time there's change. And being resilient, I think, is the key to it. So I think resilience is the foundation for thriving going forward.
Sounds a little bit like you're preaching some ISO there, where it's not just threats, but it's opportunities.
A little bit, yeah. Well, these are good business principles, aren't they?
Yeah, they certainly are. So this is all great to talk about. Strategy is a wonderful thing, but how are we going to balance the strategy we're going to talk about with the actionable steps with our listeners on these podcasts?
Yeah, I said that we weren't going to be talking about the 3 to 5 year horizon, which I think we all think about as strategy. Mm-hmm. So maybe we use the word direction rather than strategy. In other words, you don't want to make decisions today or make changes today that don't align with your view of the direction of your company.
Okay.
So you do have to think a little bit longer term to make good decisions. So we're going to tie strategy with tactics. We're going to tie longer term viewpoint with decisions made today. And we're going to ask every guest, what can a small business do this week with what they've learned to put themselves on a better footing? So we're not going to really just talk about ideas. We're going to talk about how to turn all this uncertainty into a tangible plan for continued success of your business.
So you're sort of splitting the hairs between being reactionary and thinking too far ahead that you can't really make adjustments now. So
that's
you're kind of
tough.
being a little more.
You're right.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, I'm a strategy guy. I love long term, but I've had this kind of slap my hand a couple of times and say, don't do that right now. Not that you are ignorant of strategy. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But you want to, navigate your way through the rapids before you can get to the calm water, shall we say. And we're in the rapids right now.
Yep.
So it's time to focus on where's that rock and where's that pool and where's the water going to overtake my boat. And if I fall in, what am I going to do? There might be a time when things calm out and we can get a sandwich out and enjoy the sunshine. But right now, keep the oars in the water and
grab a paddle and a helmet and let's go.
Grab a paddle and let's go. That's right.
So, final thoughts here, and probably one of the most important aspects. What do you want listeners to take away from this series?
All right. 3 things top of mind for me. One is no one's alone in this. Mm-hmm. And you might feel like you're the only one struggling, or you don't know how to interact with others who are struggling. Well, this is a way to do that. So you're definitely not alone, and you're going to hear stories and from people who around the country that are dealing with these issues. Mm-hmm. Secondly, there are real tactical, actionable things that can be done to get some control over the circumstances, realizing that we don't quite know what all the change we're going to have to face is going to be.
Okay.
And then third, there are national networks of people who are available to you in wherever you live in the U.S., and they want to help. And so we're going to meet a few of those folks and get connected with those networks. So I guess bottom line is if everybody walks away from each episode with one good idea, that's a win. Now, while we're talking a lot about U.S. and U.S. change, I know we have listeners from around the world, in other parts of the world. I was just talking to a good friend in the Netherlands this morning. Crazy that I have contact with people in the Netherlands, but through our acquisition by LRQA, great company that we're now part of.
Yes.
We've met folks from overseas, and a good friend from the Netherlands and I were talking about what they're experiencing with regard to the economic changes and what we're experiencing. And while there are, different points of view, everybody's dealing with the same level of uncertainty and change. Where the issues are coming from or whether you agree or don't agree, that's sort of not the issue.
Not really, yeah.
It's what do we do now to make our business, wherever you're located, not only survive these times, but thrive coming out of it.
So really help people with maybe some of the paralysis they're feeling with the uncertainty and
exactly
help them, give them some points to go forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do tend to freeze up in times like these, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Well, this has really been enlightening. Do you have any last thoughts before we kick this thing off next week?
If you're in a small business or you own a small business and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not the only one. You're not alone. That's the heartbeat of this series. And for the next few weeks, we're going to bring voices from all over the U.S., all over the country, saying, here's what we're seeing. Here's some advice on what might help. Here are some things that you can do to keep things moving forward. Mm-hmm. And if each episode gave you one insight or one question you could ask or one step you could take, and as I said, we have 10 or 12 episodes right now. It could be more. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You're going to have 10 or 12 things you can move forward with that maybe you don't have today. Maybe you're not clear about steps you should take. And this might be the trigger or the encouragement you need, let's say, to face some decisions and move forward and really make your company be successful.
Well said, Scott. Really appreciate you for launching this with us and just for leading this charge.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, X. Excited to see how this is received by our audience. And X will give you contact information that you can reach out to us. So if you have any feedback, questions, or topics you might like us to address in this series, please reach out. We're listening. We're here. We're here to help.
We sure are. We want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope this has been informative for you. If you're looking for more information about how we can help you now that we're an LRQA company, whether it's with ISO certification, cybersecurity, customized training, getting some consulting help with your business, what you should be looking at next, please reach out to us. Email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And I believe we're going to have a separate web page there as well for this specific series. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so. And that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day.